maybe not so much. You know, when I was a young writer pup, just a young writer pup last week, I labored under the delusion that I would sit down to write and words would flow from my fingers like whatever figurative language you can think of here that both flows and is good, so urine is right out. I thought that whatever I wrote first was somehow pure and closest to my artistic vision, you know, and inspired by my muse. I was always wearing a turtleneck in these fantasies. And I would write sentences like, "Nay, my brethren, for have ye not heard that his father, the elven warlock of Mordor, Aenia, Spill Town, has forsooth this very day become the cloven foot of injustice, not the cloven foot of injustice of which we have heard tell in legend. Yea, brother, this is what I'm talking about." The only way I seem to be able to write a book is to write it wrong first. I always create a file called orphans for everything that I write, and whatever doesn't make the cut goes in there. And sometimes that orphan file is about 300 pages long. Yeah, lucky me, that's my process. Yay. When I wrote the last book in the Gemma Doyle trilogy, The Sweet Far Thing, which in my family we call the sweet farting. Number 7, farts are always funny. I wrote an entire 500-page book wrong, completely wrong. And like I turned it into my editor and I was hiding and she called me up and she's like, "Yeah, what? Are you high? Did you have a brain injury? That's all I need to know." And I was like, "No, it's my novel. Psych, can I have it back?" When I wrote Beauty Queens, I started off with this insane narrator who was narrating things because that's what narrators do. Thank you, Captain Obvious. And halfway through the novel, he gets kidnapped by terrorists, and then he disappears for a while. He's replaced by the corporate narrator, and he has to fight his way back through leech-infested waters to get there. And David Levithan, you guys know David Levithan? David Levithan is awesome, and he's a good friend, and he was my editor on that. And he kept saying, "I'm going to do my David Levithan as Spock impression." I don't believe that's working. I was like, "No, it's going to work. It's going to kill." He was like, "No, because it's batshit crazy." And so in the margins, he wrote, on my track changes, he wrote, "Oh, hi there. Do you see me? Do you see what I'm carrying? I'm carrying some lumber. You know why? Because I'm a carpenter. Not like Karen Carpenter or Jesus. Like Bob Vila. I'm rebuilding the fourth wall. There. Looks good, doesn't it?" And he was right. And of course there was the infamous talking penis scene in Going Bovine. It was just a heartfelt conversation between a boy and his penis. I don't know why my editor objected. It's like a buddy movie. The thing is, when we first write something, we're presenting false selves. We're still figuring out the story, and we're a little guarded. And so it's like that first week of school when you're trying to impress people, and you haven't gotten down to the marrow yet. You're like, "Yeah, I started off the morning, just rescuing some Bolivian orphans from a burning bus. A little something I do in my spare time with my ninja skills." And revision is like your very best friend who rolls her eyes and says, "Okay, delusional, you spent the morning eating cereal out of a box and playing Borderlands. Yeah, also you cut one and blamed it on the dog. Don't make me slap you, get real." And that's what revision does. It forces you to get real because writing is hard. It's reaching down into your guts and pulling up all of that messy human stuff that you don't want anyone to know about you and then putting it on a page like a psychotic person. Writing is revision and revision and revision, writing down to what's too uncomfortable, too raw, what's true and what really matters. Although I still think that talking penis scene could have killed. Number 13, do not drop acid and go see aliens. Mistake. 14, Things you should probably do at least once. Dye your hair. Stay up all night and watch the sunrise. Get your heart broken. Drive cross country. Write a song. Sing in public. Boldly declare your love for someone, and fingers crossed that goes well for you. Swim in the ocean. Protest. Mix every conceivable flavor of Slurpee into a cup and take a swig. 15 things you should probably do more than once. Dream big. Go for it. Screw up. Fail. Get back up. Tell someone how you really feel. Travel. Realize you're not the only person in the universe and act accordingly. Redefine everything you thought you knew or wanted or didn't want or liked or loved or hated or said you would never ever do. You cannot make me know you can't ever ever do. Change your underwear. 16. Pay attention to what's going on around you, or history will be written without your consent. You know, one of the byproducts of writing historical fiction is that it brings you into the past and shows you how the past informs the present. It gives you perspective and a frame of reference about the laws being enacted today, or the rhetoric being spouted, and what sorts of biases they may have underneath, masked by all sorts of good words and good intentions. So, for instance, when I was researching the 1920s for the diviners, there were two things I found out that I found very, very interesting. One was that they thought radiation was really good for you, that it was sort of a health thing. And so there was this drink it was like the Mountain Dew or the Smart Water of its time. It was called Radithor. It had radium in it. That's a good idea. It was called Perpetual Sunshine in a Bottle. Yeah, because it makes your bones glow. And there was this dude, this rich industrialist named Eben Byers, and he drank like 1,400 bottles of that stuff. And the Wall Street Journal, when he died, because I think you know that's where it's going, the headline said, "The radium water worked just fine until his jaw came off." And they had to bury him in a lead-lined coffin. But the other thing, the thing I found most chilling when I was researching that, was America's eugenics movement. Eugenics was a pseudoscience that stated that most of society's ills were caused by flaws of heredity. And so they thought that you could improve the human race, in a sense, build a super race through selective breeding. You could get rid of mental illness, alcoholism, the criminal class, epilepsy, disease. And of course, what did they think made for superior breeding? Nordic traits, white people stock. They wanted to reduce the number of ethnic populations. They talked about forced sterilizations. They did forced sterilizations. Is this sounding familiar? At the Nuremberg trials, they said, you know, we got some of this from you guys. It's not just that eugenics was a terrible, awful theory, that it was inhumane and wrong. It's that this racism was presented as science, as fact. It influenced laws, discriminatory laws like the Immigration Act and the Racial Integrity Act of 1924 that stayed on the books for decades, you guys. This happened in America and not that long ago, and that's why I think it's very important to pay attention to history, to know your past, to understand that it's always with us, because it informs the future, and this is your future we're talking about.